Some attorneys just frankly are unfit for practicing law. One of the things you have to ask yourself if you're considering quitting practicing law is the feedback you've consistently been getting from the environment. A lot of times people can go to school and do okay in law school or well in law school, but still be unfit for practicing law. I want to just talk real briefly about a couple different types of attorneys that I've met in the past and why they may not be fit for practicing law. And I think maybe that will help you if you're considering maybe quitting practicing law. Quick story is I was in law school and I had a professor that had gone to Yale Law School, and he was a junior professor and actually didn't end up getting tenure, but I was getting the top grade in his class and I came to talk to him about something, but he told me that I shouldn't be practicing law. And I didn't really understand what he meant because I was always interested in business and talking about business and doing different things. And I was actually an asphalt contractor before I went to law school, and I'm very interested in that. I was angry at the time, but based on what he said to me, what he meant was attorneys are very detail oriented. They're very, very concerned about details and finding things, and they take it seriously and they close their books and march off. And then they're also very dedicated to that and solving other people's problems. And if you're going to be a good attorney, you have to be interested in other people's problems, and that has to excite you. It's about other people's problems, and you have to be willing to sit down and be very, very detail-oriented and not make mistakes and so forth. And you have to be also the type of person that you would want representing you if you had a problem. So a lot of times, if you're not that way and you're more interested in other things and solving other people's problems doesn't excite you, like it didn't me, being extremely detail-oriented with anything doesn't excite you, and sitting in a desk with no one around you and working for long hours on detail-oriented stuff doesn't excite you, then maybe you shouldn't be practicing law. That's one thing. So that's the first example is myself. Another example I can think of is I've had numerous attorneys working for me throughout the years. The ones that aren't fit for practicing law are the ones that are doing things like if they write a letter, there's all sorts of typos and mistakes in it. Or they write a brief and there's all sorts of typos and mistakes in it. I recently let an attorney go that when they wrote a letter, paragraphs would be misspaced, or ideas would be missed that were crucial, or the person was just too scatterbrained, or they wouldn't think about the right court to file things in. And after you've been practicing for several years, figuring out the right court to put things in should excite you. Figuring out the way to format a letter properly should excite you. Making sure you catch every legal idea should excite you. And people that don't do those things are doing their clients a disservice. So if you're missing ideas and you're having these problems and it's consistent, then you really shouldn't be practicing law. I remember when I was practicing law, there was a girl in our firm that couldn't understand the difference between a federal and state court. Had gone to Harvard Law School, but had that issue. And she eventually understood it, but the fact that that was even an issue meant that something was wrong. The other thing is, if studying for the bar exam, long hours and stuff doesn't excite you in passing that, and it's not a priority for you, and it never was, and you're probably unfit for practicing law. Some other examples of people that are unfit for practicing law means if you're doing things consistently that are getting your clients into trouble and you're not helping them, or you're getting very, very negative feedback from your firm about things, that's not good. You need to be the kind of person that you would want representing you. Another example I can think of is several years ago, I'd called the UCLA Career Services office because I wanted to hire a junior attorney. And they sent me several resumes. And one of the persons I interviewed was very top of the class. And the person came by, and when I tried to shake their hand, they looked down and there was a very clammy hand. And when I tried to talk to them, I couldn't discuss anything because a person couldn't converse about anything. And that's not a good person to have working in a law firm, in the government, anywhere. I mean, if you can't connect with people and you can't do things, then that's a problem. So those are some examples, and maybe some of them apply to you. But the main point is you shouldn't be practicing law if it doesn't excite you. And if the idea of working for other people, solving their problems doesn't excite you and you can't get passionate about it. If, like me, you're passionate about something else, then that's probably not a good sign. You need to be passionate about helping other people, and it should be your focus. Well, there's some questions that I ask people when I'm trying to determine if they should practice law or not. First one is, does solving clients' problems excite you? That needs to excite you. You need to be excited about other people's problems. You need to think about their problems when you're not working. So when you're driving home in the car, you should be thinking about ways to solve their problems and different things you can do. Attorneys love that. Attorneys love coming up with crafty solutions that solve their clients' problems, and that should excite you. If you're engrossed when you're practicing law, when you're reading or writing or doing the work, time should fly. It shouldn't be boring to you. And if it is, then there's a problem. And it needs to feel natural to you. It needs to be something that you would do even if there was less money. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to enjoy like super long hours inside of a law firm, because there may be another practice setting for you. But it does mean that there's things about the work that you enjoy. I once hired a guy that had been a partner at a major US law firm, like one of the top 10 law firms in the country. And he decided that he didn't want to work at that law firm anymore. And I said, if you ever think about recruiting, you should come work in recruiting. And he went in-house, and after a couple weeks in-house, for whatever reason, he decided he didn't want to work at the in-house job, and he came to work for our company. But after a couple months, I said, how do you like this? And he said, I miss practicing law, I miss this, and I miss that. So that's what he's doing today. So very few people feel that way, but if you feel like you really miss practicing law, then if you were not doing it, then that is a sign like he was someone that should be practicing law. You should also always constantly think about your work. So good lawyers don't rush work out the door. Someone that's suited to practicing law always wants to think about ways they can make their work better. You should also get emotionally involved in the matters you're working on and really want to win. You should want to get the most in a transaction. If you're litigating a case, you should do well enough. You should be interested in different angles, and you should want to read, speak, and read about it in your free time. I can always tell people that are really good and should be practicing law when I go into their house and they're reading books that are related to the law. I mean, that's someone that's just all over it. That's a little bit extreme, but you should really enjoy what you're doing. The first thing is, being an attorney is not really about you. It's about protecting other people or other companies and making sure that you give that person the most advantages you can when push comes to shove. And being that way and understanding that should be natural and something that just motivates you when you get up. If it isn't, you shouldn't be practicing law. A lot of times you may think you're not fit for practicing law because of the environment that you're in. You may get negative feedback in a law firm environment because of the pressure of the work. You may get negative feedback in a government environment because you're not suited to work for the government. You may get negative feedback in an in-house environment. You may be better off as an in-house attorney. But the big thing is, just because you're in the wrong environment doesn't mean you're not suited to practicing law. You need to understand the type of environment and the type of legal environment where you'll be happiest. Not only in the practice setting, but the type of people that you work with. So you need to be working with people that make you feel supported and comfortable. If you're around people where you feel comfortable and happy, then you're in the right environment. And then that's really the most important thing.